Welcome back to our channel, Hume's Little Homestead. I'm Katie, my husband is Ryan. We are growing our family and building our little homestead. Last night we had a camp out in the backyard, and we also broke our challenge. We went out to eat at one of our favorite places. I had some tomatoes delivered in a town called Joseph City. It's a couple towns over from where we live, and our favorite restaurant is called Esther's Diner in Joseph City. If you're ever in northern Arizona, if you're ever passing I-40 and you're ever in Joseph City, you need to go to Esther's Diner. It is so yummy. Oh, some geese just flew by. That was cool. I don't know if you could hear him on the camera. Anyway, last night we went out to eat and the kids were so excited. Levi actually said, "This is the best meal I've eaten in over a month." So they've definitely been missing eating out. But today I am doing our menu planning for June. I'm also going to be making a chart for my garden. I labeled every single plant, but the sun has been fading those labels. So it was a bright orange color that I used, and now it's like a yellow. So I need to make sure and get a list of all those plants on a piece of paper that I'm going to keep in the house. That's what I did last year, but I always would lose my list, and some plants died, and I ended up replanting and not updating the list. And so I thought if I labeled every plant, then I would know what was planted, and I could keep better records of how many tomatoes each plant produced and let you guys know which ones produce the best in my area. So, and which ones are my favorite. So I ended up planting every single variety again this year because I just love all the varieties of tomato. And I'll probably end up doing one of each variety every year unless so like Amish paste and San Marzano are very similar tomatoes. So this year I'm kind of like competing between San Marzano and Amish paste to see which one is the better producer. But like the specialty ones like pink brandywine, black cherry. I'm trying black cherry for the first time this year. I actually had a friend last night saying that chocolate cherry were better. So I'm trying the black cherry, and if I like them, I'll probably stick with them. But next year, I'll probably try chocolate cherry too. So they're just like a dark purple cherry tomato, and I've been really wanting to get some variety like that in my garden. So I'll always grow Matt's wild cherry. They're so delicious, and I'll always grow like black crim. I really liked those ones, and Cherokee purple. But those ones are really similar too. So I'll be doing like a test this year about, okay, the black crim and the Cherokee purple are both purple tomatoes. Let's see which one I like the best. And the other thing I wanted to talk about in this video, I'll stay back here because it's out of the wind. I'm like in between the rabbit hutches. The other thing I'll talk about in this video really quickly is this week has been the perfect week to put my garden in, and I just kept thinking, man, I'm so lucky that the weather has been so great. But then I thought about it and I was like, oh, it's not really luck. Well, it is lucky, but I looked at the weather like a hawk. I've been watching the weather, and waiting because I learned in previous years, because when I lived in town in high school, I lived in Holbrook, and it was really close to where I live. It's only 15 minutes away. I always planted at the beginning of May, in the middle of May, and it was fine. It was warmer there. It didn't freeze at the end of May. And every year here in Woodruff, where I live, it always freezes at the end of May. And I didn't know that when I first moved here. So I put in all my tomatoes and everything at the same time I normally did, the beginning of May. And I lost everything. I lost all of my plants. And it was so devastating. I was so frustrated. And then a neighbor said, "You shouldn't plant until after Memorial Day." And I was like, oh, I didn't know that. And so anyway, I knew that for the next year, and then I tried again, and I just didn't have very much success with my gardens for the first couple of years here because I had to learn some things about the weather. And something I didn't think to look at was the wind, because also when I lived in town, it's windy in town, but there's buildings in town and there's all kinds of things that block the wind. Trees, buildings, fences. There's lots of different things that block all that wind from getting on your plants. But here, out in the country, I'll call it, there's not very many structures, and we're surrounded by a couple of really beautiful fields. So there's no structures. We didn't have any trees planted on our property at the time. We have a lot of trees planted now, but they're still little babies and they don't block the wind very well. So those were things to look at when you're going to plant. Get in touch with the weather. So get in tune with the weather is what I'm trying to say. That where you live, there's going to be weather patterns. And I noticed very windy days, like if it's going to be windy for a whole week, don't put your plants out on that week. And that was last weekend. I wanted to plant so badly last weekend because the temperatures were going to be fine, but the wind was insane. It was like 70-mile-per-hour wind on Saturday, and Sunday was like 50 to 60 per mile hour wind. And then on those very windy days, it wasn't forecasted that it would freeze, but the wind was forecasted. But on those windy days at night, it froze down in like the 20s. And so it was a hard freeze here. So I was following the weather pattern on the wind. So if you lost all your plants, don't feel discouraged. It's happened to me a couple times. And last year was actually my first. So I shouldn't say that. When Haley was a baby, I had a really successful year with like chard and things that we don't eat, things that are like winter crops. And I had a really successful year with that, but then my tomatoes just didn't do well because we went on a trip to Indiana to visit family and I didn't have anything on timers and it just all died when we were gone on our trip. So last year was my first successful year to have like tomato harvest, canning tomatoes. And I've been attempting a garden since we've moved here like 6 years ago. So just keep going. Don't give up. Get in tune with your weather patterns and be mindful of what's going on in your area with weather, wind, the temperature, just your climate in general. Is there normal weather patterns? Like another channel I watch a lot of is Living Traditions Homestead, and they are from Phoenix, Arizona, where it's completely different temperature than where I'm from in Arizona, but they never dealt with so much rain. And so I've lived in Kentucky as well, where it rains a lot. And what their problem has been this year is that it's rained so much on them and they haven't been able to get their garden in as quickly as they'd like. And so if it rains a lot where you're at, be mindful of that, because if you put your plants in when it's going to rain on them, they might not do well. So, and you might not be able to put the amendments in and all of that. So anyway, just be aware of your weather patterns. But I'm going to show you the garden because it's looking beautiful. And I'm so happy that I waited. And actually, I was checking the weather again, and it is going to be above the 50s hopefully for the duration of the summer. So I'm going to be planting my peppers on Monday. No. I decided Sunday night. I'm going to be planting my peppers on Sunday night. So it is Friday today. Ryan is taking the boys on a boys trip, and I just want to wait a couple days because there's no harm in waiting. It's not going to hurt my pepper plants to stay in their little cups a couple days. And I'm just going to wait and see if the wind stays settled because it's June, almost June now, and the wind usually does settle down in June. And so anyway, my peppers are ready to go out, but I'm just going to hold off a couple days, just like I did with the tomatoes, because it has been very successful. And so Sunday evening is the perfect day because Monday is supposed to be partly cloudy, Tuesday is supposed to be partly cloudy, and those cloudy days are just perfect when you want to plant your tomatoes. And peppers, any of your plants, if you plant on a cloudy day, it's a perfect day to plant. And I'm going to plant some seeds today in the ground, like cucumber. I'll show you all the plants I have. But anyway, that's all I wanted to say is get in tune with your weather because it can be really, really helpful. So the quail are doing great. The incubator temperature was at 101 this morning, so I was a little upset about that. But I just turned it down one notch, and hopefully that's good. It was at 53% humidity, so I'm glad about that. It should be good. So we are on at 2:30 today. It'll be full 24 hours, it'll be officially day 1 at 2:30 for our quail. And then tomorrow at 2:30, I will plug in the egg turner for those quail. And that will be, because it says in the note, wait 48 hours to start the egg turner, because you want shipped eggs to rest for a while. But I did start incubating them right away. I didn't want them waiting to turn, because you can wait, I've done this with chicken eggs, you can wait 24 hours at room temperature and then set your eggs. But I just decided to put them in the incubator right away instead. Last night I put our baby ducks in there and they did okay, but I need to move them over now because I closed that up and they're just getting way too big to be in the house. But they're still so little and anything could eat them. And there's still this hole here that I need to fix, but I don't know what creature has been getting in. But they seem to be safe when I lock everything up at night in there. Oh, we're going this way. The meat chickens are doing really well. We haven't lost any, so I was really excited about that. It is normal to occasionally lose 1 or 2 chicks when you're brooding them, but they seem to be doing really well and they look really healthy. They actually did not have the feet problems that my olive eggers and Easter eggers had. I see one there that's a little dirty. I could clean that one up, but maybe I can catch one here. They're so fast. Gotcha. So they have a little crusties, but I can get in here and clean that, but they're growing so fast. I know they're supposed to, but man, it's crazy. So I did find out that I will be switching their feed to 12 on, 12 off at 3 weeks. And at that time, I will also switch them to meat bird feed. Hi, cutie. Come here. Not hungry? Not hungry. So right now I'm still free feeding them. I turned the light off in the day, but right now I'm going to leave it on. It's kind of chilly this morning. And they were all over in this area, so I know that they want their light. So whenever they're spread out, all over in here, then I know I can turn the light off. But right now they're still a little chilly and they want to be under that light source. So I'm getting them some fresh water right now. I started putting it on this, it's just a piece of, there's poop on it, but it's just a piece of, why can't I think what this is, plywood? And it kept their water much cleaner. So I'll flip it over today. And they were getting their water super messy. There's a feather in there right now. I'm just showing you how it looks. It was much worse than this before I had set it on the plywood. So I'll clean it out, give them fresh water, and set it on there like that. And that kept it a lot cleaner, kept the poop out of it and everything. So that was really helpful. And then I've just been using Tupperwares to feed them, and they've been doing just fine. I do check on them every couple of hours because I did have one. This was tipped over, and it was just chilling inside of it. Let me see if I can. It was like this. They're getting bigger. Anyway, it was inside of it, and it was chilling out. I was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? I thought it was suffocating. There's lots of poop in here this morning. I suspect the pooping is just going to get more and more as they get bigger and bigger and bigger. Because all I do is eat and sleep and poop. My plan is, so I have 19. So my plan is to put 10 outside in the chicken tractor and leave 9 in here so that they're kind of spread out. And maybe that will help them have a little bit of a healthier life so that I don't have all 19 in that chicken tractor when they're getting really big. And then I think maybe each week I'll trade them. So the first week the 10 will be in the chicken tractor, and then I'll trade them and put 10 in here and 9 in there so that they can get fresh air and grass as well as the feed. I think that'll be really healthy for them. And I think it'll be healthier for them to be split up into groups of 10 and 9 instead of stay a group of 19. Right now it's fine because they're super tiny still. He's saying good morning to the channel. How'd you like our camp out?
Why don't lick my mouth?
Ew. How'd you like Esther's? All right. Is everyone still asleep?
I'm pretty sure.
Okay, let's not wake them up. I left all these plants out last night, kind of just to see how they would do. A lot of them did really well. I'm going to move them down in the shade right here since some of them did not do well. They didn't appreciate that weather. It got chilly last night, but my in-the-ground garden looks just fine. I wonder if it's warmer. I don't know. That doesn't make sense. It should be cooler down on the ground, but except for the fact that air is circulating all around these, so that cool air got underneath and above. So the in-the-ground garden looks great. It did not have this issue. And maybe it has to do with what type this is. This is an Amish paste. So maybe Amish paste don't do as well with cooler weather. Black Krim as well. I noticed last year when it got a little chilly, my Black Krim really died really fast. So I noticed that last year as well. And what's this one over here? Green Zebra. It's not nearly as floppy. Looks great. I just heard movement. There comes a little one. Did you sleep good? And sit on your chair? You need a new chair, huh?
And all the way up.
That's how they get their drink.
Oh, he's feeling left out. Like, hey, there's a whole other side, dude.
Here's all of my seed bins. I saved these last year. These are mammoth sunflowers. These are marigold seeds that I saved. And I saved these from 2019. I'm going to be trying 3 different kinds of beans this year. I'm going to plant these by the rabbits to create a shade for them. We are going to try English cucumber this year. These are going to go right in the garden. I've got some radishes to put down next to the onions that are growing good. I'm going to be planting the butternut squash was my favorite. I wasn't a fan of spaghetti squash, so I'm not planting any spaghetti squash this year, but planting winter squash. So butternut is the kind I'm planting. I really liked this variety. There's only a couple seeds in there, and I'm going to go ahead and plant all of those as well. I got these to try. Yellow scallop squash. I got 2 different okras to try. And I have sunflowers here. Different types of sunflowers in here.
Radish!
Oh, there's some more radishes. Those will go in the same area as the radishes. So I've got sparkler, cherry bell, and French dressing. These looked really yummy to me. We are going to try... I've got these seeds left from the seed guy. They're really old. I'm going to sow them all. So I've got Hale's Best Cantaloupe, Honeydew Melon, and then I'm going to use up the rest of this seed packet. Well, maybe not the rest of it. There's a lot. Crimson Sweet Watermelon. And I'm going to plant Peaches and Cream Sweet Corn. These were from my church last year. Or no, in 2019. I purchased a bunch of seeds from them. I'm going to do gray zucchini. And I'm going to use up both of these packages of yellow crookneck squash. I wanted more crookneck squash last year, so I'm going to go a little crazy on this. And then I'm going to plant these pumpkin seeds. Not all of them, just some of them. And we actually saved pumpkin seeds from our pumpkin last Halloween. And this pumpkin was from a farm in Snowflake, Arizona. And Haley wanted to try and grow her own pumpkins from her pumpkin that she carved at Halloween. I actually had one growing because Hannah really wanted to plant something. I think that it might have died. I'll go and see if it's still alive, but it was on its way out. But I've never really had success with corn, so we're going to give it a try and plant some of these things under the corn, the pumpkins for sure. I had a problem with squash bugs 2 years ago, really, really bad. Last year, I just stayed on top of it. I didn't plant very many squash, and I just checked my squash plants every single day. So I'm planning on doing that again. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Yeah, here's that pumpkin. I never like to plant pumpkins or melons in starter pots. Hannah just really wanted to, but yeah, it's definitely dead. We'll just give her a new pumpkin to plant. It's so nice. All of the tomatoes, almost all of them have been sold, so now this room is really cleared out. I'll show you how great these little herbs are doing. So over here we have the yarrow. Over here is snapdragon. Right here is St. John's wort, feverfew white stripes, foxglove, and we even had a couple of the English lavender pop up. So I am going to remove this today. Remove this clear plastic. I knew the lavender would be hit or miss. Lavender is super hard to grow from seed, but I'm going to go ahead and remove that today and turn on the grow light. And here's the rest of the tomatoes I have for sale. Just 6 more. I'm not selling this anymore, this tomatillo. It's just I don't want to sell it. I don't feel like it's ethical. Now, here's our chickies. They need some new food and water. I got my garden chart finished up. These are the things I've planted so far. In the first row is eggplant, VR Moscow. It's a good thing I did it. I'm not going to go over this whole list because I've gone over my garden with you all. But it's a good thing I did this list because a few of these tags were really, really faded. This one, especially this VR Moscow, I had a really hard time seeing. My hands are dirty. I had a really hard time seeing what type that was. I saw a V and an M, so I guess, okay, that's probably a VR Moscow. I have 4 tomatoes left to plant. A black crim, Amish paste, black cherry, green zebra. They were looking very sad this morning because I left them outside all night to see how they would do, and they did not do well. So I brought them inside, and I'm getting them a little bit stronger before I plant them outside. When I plant them, I will make a video on specifically how to plant a tomato plant for anyone who has never planted a tomato plant. And my grandma Ellen actually taught me how to do this, and I will share with you some of her tips that she gave us. And ever since I have planted tomatoes that way, they do well. I did add egg in the hole trick recently, so that was something I learned later on, but I'll show you what my grandma taught me. So this is our vegetable garden, and these circles mean that there is some extra space right there. Along this side, I will have sunflowers, and I'm planting all my seeds today. I think Ryan is going to be able to help me with that before he leaves for his trip. And then I have a whole row right here. And then I had mentioned that this section right here, I was going to do flowers and herbs. I think I'm going to do my okra right there. I don't know if okra needs staking, so I will probably be looking that up. But this section down here, I didn't have enough space on the front of the paper, so I just put it on the back of the paper. So this is the rest of the garden. This is the space that I don't have planted yet. It's full of weeds right now. And then I have a lot of carrots right here, and then some volunteer sunflowers that I'm letting grow because carrots enjoy some shade. I have 2 rows of asparagus, and then I have the onions that my neighbor brought over. It's onions and some garlic, I believe, but it was very sweet of them, so I put them right there, and it's perfect because the water trickles right down and waters them at the very end. I like to plant stuff on the edge to utilize that water and get more pollinators, and I just use every inch that you're watering, especially if you live in a dry area and water is so in high demand. It's hard to water everything. So if you can tuck things in where water runs off, do it. And then I have my blackberry bush, which it's doing okay. I don't think it liked that freeze. And then I've got some onions and garlic, which I have showed you the chickens got in there. And then, don't look at this section yet, but that's the garden. That's all fenced in, away from critters and everything. And it should be safe, hopefully. And so it has chicken wire all around it. And that's this side too. That's the garden. And then over by my rabbits, I have planted my flower garden. So it's actually, if you're looking at my property, it's this direction. So this big garden is over here and my flower garden is over here, but we're gonna look at it this way so we can read it good. So I've got my flower garden, and I don't have any of those flowers labeled. It's mostly bulb flowers, lilies, canna mix. There's another type of flower that I'm gonna have to go back and watch my video because I don't remember what we planted in the very center. They're coming up, and then I have a milkweed, 2 milkweed plants that were given to me by my mom to plant in that space. I've got 2 apple trees also in this space. It's quite a big space. And then I've got my rabbits. And I showed you on a previous video that, so the chicken coop is right here and the rabbits are right here. So in the morning, the rabbits have plenty of shade and it's perfect. But in the afternoon, our rabbits get really hot. And so I'm going to plant green beans up and trellis them and attach them to the chicken coop so that it's like a tunnel, so that my rabbits will have shade all day and all night throughout the summer. The 2 butternut squash that I planted actually came up. So those are also going to be trellised up, and they make really nice big leaves to cover my rabbits and give them some shade. And soon, when that apple tree gets bigger, I mean soon, like in the next 3 to 5 years, that apple tree will also provide some shade for rabbits. And I might expand my rabbit tree. But right now, I just have 2 rabbits, and we just use their poop for the garden. In the future, I do want to raise meat rabbits. I'm just going to add that in. So I have 3 different types of green beans, so I'm going to do each different type on a different section of this fence. This was also my garden project with the tomatoes that I had on each corner. None of the tomatoes survived my experiment, which was fine. I have plenty of tomatoes in the other garden, as you see. So that is the planting we're doing today of seeds. The other thing we're going to do, I don't have it written out, but we'll just use this paper. This is all the tomatoes. I'm almost all the way sold out. Thank you again so much for purchasing from me. I really appreciate it. So in another section of my yard, we have a low section that gets a lot of water whenever irrigation runs off or it rains. And we are going to plant our corn. We have never had much luck with corn, but we're going to plant our corn. We're going to plant watermelon, we're going to plant pumpkin, honeydew, and cantaloupe in this section. And we're going to hope that because it's a little lower and gets water, that those crops will do well right there all together. And they're vining plants, so they can literally just go all over. It will be fine. Right now there's just a bunch of weeds started. They're all about this tall, and that's what's going on. So let me show you the varieties of plants that I have. I went over it a little bit at the beginning, but I got it organized. So in the garden, the rabbit / flower garden area, the 3 green beans I got to try. Over by the rabbits, these are the green beans I'm going to be using. I got Burpee's Stringless Green Pod. These I got from Tractor Supply, I want to say. I might have ordered them online. I don't remember. Stringless Green Pod. Burpee's Tender Pod. I wanted to get some pods that weren't stringy, so I'm trying 3. And then I also had these recommended when I asked what everyone's favorites were. So we are also trying the Golden Wax Improved. That will be fun. I really want to try like the pink one in the future. I'm going to put those back because I have a system here. In the actual vegetable garden that has the chicken wire all around it, we are putting okra. These are from Baker Creek. Clemson Spineless. Okra Burgundy. I thought those were so pretty. I love okra. I'm really excited to have okra in our garden this year. It's more of a southern thing, but my family is actually from the south, so I do enjoy a lot of southern foods. Winter squash, these were my favorite. These are little acorn winter squashes. The ones I got last year, all of them looked the same. They were like yellow looking. I didn't get any of these other green ones. But I'm going to go ahead and plant the rest of these seeds and see what happens. Can't get them out of there. And then butternut squash, because I had 2 grow over by the rabbits, I'm only going to plant 1 of these in my actual garden. But I do want to have 1 in the garden because these were delicious and they saved for a long time. Like I mentioned before, we didn't really like the spaghetti squash. It was too much work and we didn't, I don't know, I like spaghetti noodles. If we were like gluten intolerant or something, I might want to be growing more spaghetti squash, but we just like regular noodles. We're going to be trying English cucumber this year. I had Ashley organic cucumbers in the past and they were really good, but we don't like it when cucumbers get bitter. And so we were Googling and this was recommended. They are supposed to be grown in a greenhouse, but we're going to try them and maybe they'll be bitter, but every cucumber we've ever tried just turns out bitter. And I think it has to do with the heat and our water, but anyway, we're going to try these. They look yummy. We're going to do zucchini. This is called gray zucchini. These came from my church a couple years ago. I purchased them, and they did really great last year. That was the same with the winter squash. Those ones came from my church. They just did an order. I think it was only $5 for seeds, and so I got a whole bunch of seeds for $5, and they have been really good to have in storage. I got these from Baker Creek. Yellow scallop, they look really tasty. I've never had them. They are a bush type, so they won't need to be trellised. Crookneck squash, I have 2 different kinds. I was sad I didn't have as much squash I wanted last year. I only planted 2 plants because I thought that would be plenty. So this year I'm going to go a little overboard with the squash and see what happens. I'm going to be planting these cherry bells radishes, sparkler radish, and French dressing radishes over by the onions. And then here are the sunflowers I'm going to be planting. I'm going to plant some of these in between one of our archways just to have a lot of sunflowers growing. I think it's going to be really pretty. And I'm going to plant Evening Sun, if I have some in there. You know what, let me see. I didn't take these out. Yeah, there's plenty. So Evening Sun are my favorite type of sunflowers because of all the colors they get. So I'm going to be planting these along each trellis in my garden. I love how that looked last year, and I'm going to do the same exact thing. And then the mammoth sunflowers I planted to be shade for my peppers in the evening, and it worked out perfectly. So I'm going to plant a row of those behind the peppers.
Hi, Channel.
You ready for your trip?
Yes. Very. We're gonna play the Switch.
And I have marigolds to plant. I'm not exactly sure. I'm going to hold off on planting marigolds because they grow so quickly. So I'm going to plant them after the herbs and things have filled in a little, and then just fill in spaces. But they grow so quickly, I can sow them and they will be up in like 5 seconds, I swear. But yeah, I will be sowing some marigold seeds here shortly. Then in that low section of the field, we are going to plant. I have seeds from the seed guy still, and since that asparagus and everything else grew that I tried, the brassicas, they were from the seed guy. I'm going to go ahead and plant the rest of these honeydew melon seeds. Hale's Best Cantaloupe seeds. I have these from last year, Crimson Sweet watermelon. We have sweet corn, peaches and cream. And we have field pumpkins. And these pumpkins that Haley saved. And I know that they will germinate because we had that one germinate but died. But that's pretty exciting. So that's what we're going to be growing. These are from the farm in Snowflake that we go to every Halloween. And we saved it from our pumpkin. Haley really wanted to try that out, so we did. I just read that these need to be soaked for 24 hours before planting, so I'll be planting these tomorrow morning. So I'm going to put them in, I got a baby jar and a glass, and I'm going to set the package behind them so I know which seeds are which. Plant today is some trumpet vine. I have been keeping this in the fridge for about a month now. I collected these seed pods in the fall, actually from one of my parents' neighbors. I felt like I was stealing, and Ryan's laughing at me because Anyway, I busted open the seed pod, and that's what the seeds look like. My trumpet vine that I bought from Tractor Supply is not blooming, or it's not even sprouting, so I'm going to plant some of these in some little cups, and I'm going to leave this jar in the fridge, and it'll just stay dormant until if it works, then I'll plant them. If not, maybe I'll plant some more. I don't know. I'm just going to keep this jar in the fridge, and we'll see what happens with it, but I am going to plant some of those today too. Here is what those seeds look like. Because I don't know what they look like growing, I'm not going to plant them outside. I'm going to plant them in little cups, just like I started all of my plants, and then we'll see if they sprout. And then I'll plant them outside. They look kind of cool. They're like paper. Very thin like paper. I planted them. Some of them I left right on the surface and didn't bury them down. Others I buried all the way and watered them, and I put this clear plastic wrap over to hold in some humidity. And then I also have some on paper towel in a Ziploc baggie right here to see if they will sprout. I was thinking about putting these in the fridge, but I think I'll just leave them here. Let's say hi to the olive eggers and Easter eggers and our baby chick. So tiny. It's all dirty right now. They're so cute. I have the light turned off in the daytime now. It's warm enough in here, and they are all getting their feathers. Even this little one that just hatched is starting to get some feathers. Now, if it was cooler than, like, it's probably 75 in here. If it was cooler than that, then I would. Let's clean you off, little dude. Oh, they're so soft when they're first born. They're doing great. They're looking super healthy. Their feet are looking good. Let me grab one here. This one is the biggest one. So there's some little scabs on the feet where they were dirty, but for the most part, they've healed up good. Look how pretty the coloring is on this chicken. I'm really excited for these new egg layers in our flock. I can't wait to see what color of eggs they lay. That one has so many colorings. Look at its markings. So pretty. I can't wait to see how they look as adults. I guess I could Google it, but it's kind of fun just being surprised. They're getting ready to get to their ugly stage, but these ones are really pretty. They don't look very ugly to me. I guess if you don't like chickens, you might think they're ugly. My next task today is making our menu for June. We have narrowed down 10 meals that my kids liked, everybody liked. So I've narrowed, well, Levi said no on a lot of them, but for the most part, most everyone in the family likes 10 meals that I made last month. This month, I'm also going to be planning for having frozen pizzas. I know it's not as healthy, but it was just mentally and physically exhausting to cook from scratch every single night. Probably sounds ridiculous that cooking every meal is too tiring to do. I know there are people who cook every meal and do a great job at it. But for me, I was tired and I got pretty grouchy at the end of this challenge, and Esther's Diner has never been better. Last night it was amazing. So we're gonna be planning to eat out probably once a week, and then we're also gonna be planning on having meals like frozen pizzas in our freezer. And so frozen pizzas and some frozen dinners, like there's little frozen burritos that we like, frozen chimichangas, and like taquitos, those kinds of things, which I know are not healthy, but I need something in the freezer that I can just do quickly, that is not all the way from scratch, but that we can still stick to our not eating out as often, because we just kind of got out of hand eating out so much. So we still have our favorite restaurants and we'll want to go there and support them. I think during COVID is when we started eating out even more than normal. Like, we used to eat out, we've always eaten out quite a bit, but during COVID we ate out so much because I don't even know why. Because it's not like we weren't home. Ryan had to work the whole time. He was essential, or whatever you want to call it. But so while everybody was off, like, oh, we're off having a free time together, I'm like, must be nice. No, I'm just kidding. How everyone dealt with this last year is okay. I'm just saying, my husband worked the whole time anyway, but I don't know why I didn't just cook. But we just ate out a lot, and we started feeling like we needed to support local businesses more. So we're like, let's go eat out so that this business doesn't go out of business. But I think we spent so much money this last year just eating out, and we are kind of trying to take control and get it under wraps. But we love to eat out, so I don't want to cut out that completely. So we're going to keep eating out once a week, and then what else? And like I said, we'll get like frozen pizzas and stuff like that so that I can just do it. I'm still going to do just one overhaul grocery trip, and I haven't decided. I think I'll make the decision right now. I liked only going shopping once. Only going to the grocery store once saved us a ton of money. So I'm going to plan on getting 8 gallons of milk this time for June, so that we can freeze them and pull them out again. And I'm also going to be getting snack food, like Pringles, like the individual Pringles, because my kids can make their own lunches when I have those things, and I will get a lot of bread. And I had a tip that you can freeze bread, and so I think I'm going to freeze bread and defrost it in the fridge. I've never had good luck with freezing bread. I hate how soggy it gets, but I've never defrosted it in the fridge. So I think I'll try, and maybe I won't buy a bunch of bread at first. Actually, I do want to keep learning how to bake bread, but I'm not going to get a bunch of bread at first, but I will get like one extra loaf to freeze and try it in the freezer, and then try it in the fridge and see if I like that. But like I said, I've had bad experience with freezing store-bought bread. I think that it turns out soggy and gross. So, and my husband doesn't like the frozen milk. He thinks that it leaves it a weird taste when it's frozen, but it's just for Emmett, and Emmett doesn't mind the frozen milk. He hated the powder milk. I tried it with him one night. He hated the powder milk. So we definitely have to have real milk, real cow's milk. In the future, I'm definitely going to be getting dairy goats, and so hopefully we like goat milk, because that is my plan for the future with that. Because this whole project is to try and help our family become less dependent on the stores. I really want to learn how to make our own cheeses, make our own butter, make our own milk. Like, not make our own milk, milk a cow or a goat to get our own milk, so that we don't have to rely on the stores so heavily. That is my long-term goal. But I have to do it in little bits and pieces, or it's really overwhelming, because it's like, oh, I want to get all these animals and do all these things, but I just don't have the time to learn it all at once, and then I feel like I'm failing at all of it. So if I add little bit by little bit, so we're adding the meat chickens this year, and we're adding quail, and that is enough on my plate. And then we'll probably add the goats next year. So stay following along with our journey. All right, I'm going to menu plan. I will share the menu and everything tomorrow, because this video is already getting long. So we're going to plant the garden out tonight, but I'm just going to close this video now and say thanks for hanging out with me today, because this video is long already, I know, and I've showed you all the things we're going to plant, and I wouldn't have like an instructional how to plant any of that stuff. A lot of it I'm just going to Google because I forget year to year, and most of it is just like squash. You just literally poke a hole and put the squash in. But the tomatoes, I will have a how to plant a tomato video up tomorrow for you because I'm going to be planting my last 4 tomatoes tonight. And I might do a how-to video on the peppers because that was something I learned last year how to do, and so much better when I learned all the pepper tips. So I will share the tips that I've learned with peppers as well. But I'm not going to show you how to plant squash. You literally just poke a hole and put it in. So, thanks for hanging out with me today. I hope you're having a great day. It is the weekend. I hope you're having a great weekend. I will talk to you soon. Bye.